Welcome to P3 Radio.
The monkey only dances as good as the guy grinding the organ handle.
Demolition! We're coming for you, baby!
That was my moment of I carried a watermelon.
And if you're going to call me back tomorrow, whatever,
you better believe I took my turn a little bit.
What?
Cool story, bro.
PG3 Radio. Nope.
Here's your host, Jock Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, next up we have crying little blind children.
Richard Mullican.
I don't know. Is this making any sense to anybody out there?
It's showtime! It's showtime! It's showtime!
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of P3 Radio. I'm Richard Mullican, joined by my co-host and best friend, Josh Briley. Say hey, Josh.
How's it going, everybody? Richard, today we have Buzz Blackburn.
Yeah, we are excited to have this guy. If you grew up around West Tennessee in the 90s, early 2000s, you remember him from his extremely popular show, Buzz and Harvey.
And it is truly a pleasure to have him on the show and interview him and kind of reminisce about old times.
Yeah, it was one of those shows that we looked up to as kids and actually, I think, influenced our podcast today.
At least subconsciously.
Well, we're going to have that interview with Buzz up next after this commercial break from
P3 Florida. Florida Ticket Station. Florida. Your one-stop shop for discounted tickets on all of Orlando's best theme parks. Orlando. All of Orlando's local attractions. Orlando. All of Orlando's events. Fucking Orlando. All of Orlando's local attractions. Orlando. And so much more. Yeah. They offer affordable tickets to Disney World, Mickey Mouse, Universal Studios, Back to the Future, SeaWorld, Legoland, everything is awesome, Busch Gardens, I don't know what that is, and so much more.
But seriously, Josh, they are licensed and insured with the state of Florida. So you can rest assured that your reservations are valid. Summer's coming and vacation time's right around the corner. So go to tinyurl.com/P3Florida and book your Orlando vacation today. tinyurl.com/P3Florida.
P3 Florida.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can hear our next guest on weekdays from 2 to 7 on the Hog 92.3 and online. And if you grew up in West Tennessee in the late 90s like we did, like me and Josh did, you definitely remember the Buzz and Harvey show. It was an iconic radio show, something that we both grew up listening to, and everybody from this area listened to. I don't know anybody that didn't, but we are honored and privileged right now to have one of those guys on with us right now, Buzz Blackburn. Buzz, thanks for being a part of P3 Radio today.
Oh, wow, thank you guys. I'm excited. I just got through. I've been listening to some of your podcasts, and I'm officially one of your podcast listeners now. So
you don't know.
I'm
what
excited
that
to be
means.
on your show.
No, man, you don't know what that means to us.
That's truly awesome. Thank
because,
you.
like I said, we grew up like. I mean, I don't want to say like we grew up. We weren't like 2-3 years old. We were like in our teens, late teens, 16, 17, just starting to drive. And driving to school every morning, there were mornings where I was just like, man, I want to call in sick. I don't want to go to school today. I want to stay and listen to see what they're going to say next. and dude, just to hear that you actually listen to some of our shows, that's just, wow, I can't describe that.
That's awesome.
I listen to a lot of podcasts anyway, and for me, it's more the type of radio that I enjoy anyway. I like, you guys are doing a show very similar to what me and Harvey used to do, which is just we didn't really have a plan. We didn't really have anything written out. We just tried to entertain each other,
right?
And tried to imagine that there was somebody else listening on the other end, and just we're stupid, and nobody was telling us not to do stuff, so we just kept doing it, and that's what you guys are doing. There's no boss to come tell you to don't talk about that, so you're able to do what you want on podcasts. So right. You're in much the same position that we were, except we did.
You still there? Did we lose you? No, you're here. We got you.
No. I thought you might laugh when I said the difference is that we had a lot of people listening.
Oh, yeah, no. I think that's where you cut out. We were like, wait, did we lose him? No,
I didn't cut out. I stopped talking to wait for the laughter.
We'll edit it in. It'll be perfect. No, no, man. Like, honestly, I listen to it every morning. I listen to the show every morning, and I listen to it back because I sent you that tape of the one I found. And listening to some of that stuff, you're like, how did they ever get away with this? Because nowadays you can't hardly talk about anything like that on the radio.
All right. Well, here's the deal. I didn't realize at the time. I was about 20. I was 25 when we started the show. And it was 1998, April 1st, 1998. And I had no idea what a unique situation we had there as far as radio. I had been in radio and I'd worked at a couple of different stations, but I didn't appreciate just how weird it was that we were actually in a double wide trailer in Humboldt. That's where the station was. It was a custom made double wide trailer though, so don't.
Right.
It wasn't like we converted one. It was one they had made. everything was done on the cheap, and we had a pretty small powered station. It was, right now on 92.3 The Hog, it's a 100,000 watt station, and it's broadcasting off a 1,050 foot tower. So we have this great signal that gets out all over West Tennessee. It's huge, and you can't avoid it. You can pick it up in your fillings. But that station was, I think it was 3,000 watts, or still is really 3,000 watts, and it was about like a 400-foot tower. So we had a small, a lot of people outside of Gibson County had to, struggle sometimes to hear us.
Right.
But we made up for that. And the station wasn't making any money. We didn't have anything to lose. It's not like we had the ratings when we started that show. So, and we were playing alternative music, which was not, it's not exactly what's, it was fun, but how do you make money off of that in West Tennessee in the 90s? With advertisers, but we made up for all that by just doing the kind of radio show that we both wanted to hear that nobody was doing, and it absolutely worked, and it was crazy, and it was a wonderful time of my life, and I wish now I could go back just to enjoy that time more and appreciate what it was, because it was a kind of a short-lived thing. And we didn't realize what we had. I think I didn't realize what we had because I was young and stupid. But it was a special time, and it was fun. And the deal was that we would get there and we would just laugh. I remember laughing all morning, for 3 or 4 hours a day, just laughing my ass off. And I didn't realize, that's not normal. That's not a normal way to live your life. Most people don't get to laugh for 3 straight hours a day, first thing when they wake up
and
get to work.
It was a genuine laugh. It was a very genuine laugh that you guys had. It's not like some of these radio stations you hear now where it's like, not radio station, but radio shows you hear now where it's like, hey, Josh, how's it going? I'm fine. And there's other people that do that. It's like, oh, my God, why are they laughing? Unless they're just...
That wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't. But you guys, you would say things to each other, and it would be a genuine laugh, and people at home, you can see through that stuff. So, yeah, you guys were very genuine. That's what made it different.
Harvey made me laugh, and I was trying to make Harvey laugh, and we were in 2 separate studios. I think that was one of the magical things about it, is that we couldn't decide, like, I wanted to run the board for the show, and he wanted to run the board for the show. Only one person can run the mixing board for the show, right? So we compromised, and we had another studio, a production studio that was across the hallway, and it was glass windows in between the 2 studios, so we could see each other. But we were in 2 different rooms. We couldn't talk to each other when we weren't on the air, unless one of us walked around and said, hey, are we going to talk about that thing? The thing. That's the only way we could talk to each other. So he had his own mixing board in another room, and that one was piped in through. We were running both of them at the same time, so he could play audio if he wanted to off of his board. I could play stuff at the same time. So it was kind of like we were both doing 2 different radio shows at the same time, and that kind of worked because we saved everything for. We pretty much only talked while the microphones were on.
Right.
And when there was a song playing or a commercial, we'd both be doing different stuff, other than just yelling at each other across the hallway from time to time. And later on, we ended up, rearranged some things, and we got ourselves into the same studio, and that totally changed the dynamic a little bit. And it wasn't near as much fun, because when you can't really see the person that well that you're talking to, everything is about what the sound is. You know, you have to communicate everything through your voice,
right?
Because they can't see you and you can't see them. So if you don't understand something, you didn't get a visual cue. So you have to do it all through your mouth. And I think that was part of it too, is that we had to explain things thoroughly and that made it good for the listener. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if we couldn't see each other, you can't see us either listening. So,
no, it's very interesting to hear that stuff. And all I'm hearing is I need to build a wall right here so I don't have to look at Josh anymore.
I am all for that. I am all for that.
Well, it was part of it. If you're doing that for hours a day, meanwhile, while there's a song playing or there's a commercial on, he's working on a commercial that's got to start later that day. And, you know, we had actual work to do as well because we did not have staff. You know what I mean? It was we were in a double wide trailer, so you can imagine we had very low overhead for that. That's part of the reason. We didn't have to make a lot of money at first. We just had to keep the lights on. And it was kind of a family business. So it wasn't a corporate situation. We had one boss, and he was down the hall, and he was like, okay, as long as we're keeping the lights on, you guys can do what you want. And I know now, again, I did not realize what a unique situation we had. Nobody gets to do what we got to do unless you are huge and you have and your show generates hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And you have the power to say, kiss my ass, I'm going to do the show I want to do. Right. That's the only way you can do that in any kind of a corp, like Howard Stern. Howard Stern had to fight for decades just to he wasn't really able to do the show that he wanted to do until 2006 when he got on the satellite radio. And the show now is not the same as it was because everybody grows up a little bit, but he still had, when you grow up, when you're young, you have that just devil may care, I don't give a shit philosophy. And we just kind of went with it and it worked. And who knew that we were in such a unique position? I didn't appreciate it enough at the time, especially, I miss that, but it was a unique thing that you can't do anywhere. And I just took Howard Stern's, I stole his integrity is what I did. That's what I like to think. Well, I like the way he did radio. It wasn't about, I want to be wild and crazy. It was about, I just want to be myself on the radio. And I think people will dig it because I dig Howard Stern. And I'm kind of like, he's deep down, he's a stupid nerd like me. Right. And, okay, I'll get on the radio and be the stupid nerd that I am. And it totally worked. I used his formula and Harvey was into it. And that's another thing. My other radio show that inspired me is Harvey's show, because my Buzz and Harvey in high school was Woody and Harvey. Before I was into radio, Harvey had a show on that same station with a guy named Woody, Steve Wood. Wow. And they had done it on AM for many years before they put it on FM in 1988, I think. So when I was in high school, I was listening to the Woody and Harvey show, which was very similar to the Buzz and Harvey show, except much more tame and homey. It was they were talking to high school girls and calling people for their birthdays, and it was much more family friendly than the show we did. But it was the same sort of entertaining. They would play a lot of music and stuff, and it was a show for high schoolers, but a very acceptable show for high schoolers. And Steve Woody Wood, was a very funny guy and a very, very wonderful guy. And when I started in radio, I got to know him, and he passed away in 1996. He had a sudden heart attack, and died. And it was very tragic, and I missed him because, like I said, he was one of my radio heroes growing up. He was just absolutely hilarious, and he introduced me to playing all the goofy drops and lines from TV shows and stuff like that. He would do that with the cart machines. We had these things that were 8-track. They were basically 8-track tapes, but they were we called them cart machines, and that's he had a whole bunch of them that were great. But you just take that cart and you would stick it in the cart machine and play it, and then you take it out and stick it back in your cart rack. And, actually, you can see that in private parts and stuff. Yeah, it's the old school radio stuff.
You'd have to be pretty quick to throw a sound effect in there or something then, right?
Absolutely. It worked. For some reason, though, it worked so much better because it was with your hands. You weren't clicking around on a computer. You reached over there and grabbed it and you stuck it in and you played it. For some reason, I think it was easier that way than the way than doing it with computers. I don't know. It seems more natural.
More control over it or something.
It was a manual. Yeah, it was a manual thing as opposed to a mental thing. Because when it's a mental thing and you're trying to do a radio show, your brain has to stop and work this computer for a second to play some goofy thing.
Right.
And by the time you find it and play it, you're off track now mentally. So it was like a sport. Oh, anyway, I used to listen to those guys on the radio. I grew up listening to Harvey, and that was my other, like, okay, I'd do a show like that, but with more like boobs. And and Harvey's like, well, I like boobs. You know, Harvey's we were similar, and he was about 10 years older than me, and he and I had a sort of a little brother, big brother relationship. And he kind of helped me lose a bunch of weight when I started working there full time, doing commercials and just working around the station. This was not long before Woody died. And then when Woody died, he did not want to get back on the radio. You know, his partner on the radio had just died, and he's like, no, I'm out. You know, he was devastated by that. We all were, because he was a wonderful guy. And they tried some other things on in the morning on that station. And here's the deal. The station still had to keep going. Woody had died and the morning show was gone, but the station still had to pay the bills, and everyone's livelihood depended on it. So after a while of trying tried some different people on there that really didn't have a lot to offer, and the station was kind of dying. It was just, that's when we threw the alternative music on there, and not long after that, Harvey's like, well, he didn't necessarily want to get back on the radio, but he also was like, I got to eat. Right. So he had to have something to sell. He loved to sell. He's a great salesperson, still is. And he agreed to get back on the radio. So we put together the Buzz and Harvey show, and we just kind of created the show we wanted from scratch. And when I say scratch, I mean, it was like not a lot of thought put into it. But I picked my name, my radio name, which is still my radio name, which was just Buzz at the time. I didn't use I use my last name now because I had fewer stalkers. But I had the real smart foresight to realize, okay, the kind of show we're going to do, my name's in the phone book. I'm not going to use my real name. I'm not going to give out any identifying information on the radio, because we pissed off a lot of people. A lot of people were very angry with us. We would also be very confrontational and yell and argue with people. It was not a rare thing at all for a guy to get on the phone and we're talking and I'm messing with him for fun. And he's like, man, where y'all at? I'm gonna come down there and kick your ass. And I'd be like, come on, big boy, come on. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh shit, Harvey, call one of your cop friends.
Right.
Because we knew all the cops and stuff because they listened to our show too. Right. It was great because we could just say on the radio, hey, Jeff, could you come down here? And Jeff the cop would be down there in 5 minutes because he's just on patrol.
Right.
That was cool. Anyway, but we didn't have any major issues with that because we could usually make somebody laugh and make them relax. But I would say some really outrageous stuff I can't believe I said now because it was. I was not your typical West Tennessee guy.
I feel like you could see our screen because I think you've went through the first 3 questions on your own. But that was our next question. You guys got a lot of leeway with what you did because, you said you didn't have a lot of, people to look out for and just bosses wasn't really there. It was just one and you could say whatever you wanted. Did you ever remember getting into trouble from somebody other than a listener for things that you might have said?
Oh, many, many, many times. Generally, I mean, we did try to stay away from doing anything that was illegal. We knew that, the first time we got a naked girl in the studio, really surprised me. I'd heard Howard Stern do it, but he's in freaking New York City.
Right.
But we, made the call. We would always flirt with girls, and we had started this thing as a Granny's Furniture Thong, where a girl would call it with any girl. I say girl, woman, grandma. It didn't matter what how old. When she got on the phone, and by the way, we did not have a delay unit. Every radio show now is live, and has callers. Has to have a delay unit where you have an 8-second delay. You've heard of that. You hit the button and the last 8 seconds is erased and you're back live and it builds it up again and you can hit it. We did not have one of those. Those cost at the time, they cost like $10,000, So we did not have that. So when somebody would call the Buzz and Harvey show, this is one of the craziest things. They would get on there live because we would just answer the phone. No, there was nobody to screen calls because, again, we had no staff.
Right.
So we would just hit the button. Hi, you're Buzz and Harvey. Hey, this is Jeff from McKenzie. It was like that. You were on the air, and if you said fuck, it went out over the air. But I was good. I was good because my board had the phone line. I was good at. I kept my finger near the button because it's like, I know this guy's going to cuss. You can just tell. It was always guys. You can always tell when somebody's going to get it. But anyway, it got out a few times. A few things got out. But we were pretty good about it.
I remember one, and I don't remember the
I did one myself.
Well, I remember.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah. I remember somebody calling in one time. And it was, I don't remember, it was somebody, I don't think it was anybody big, but I think they were calling from like England or something like that. And they actually let go of the F word or the S words. They said something that you can't say. And I remember you just busted out with, and you said his name. You're like, I'm Paul, and I'm going to get you in trouble with the FCC.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah.
It was all you could do. You had to acknowledge that stuff when it happened. But your question was about getting in trouble.
Yes.
I tend to get, there's so much to talk about Buzz and Harvey, and I don't really talk about it much, so I tend to get off track.
Oh, we love it.
Well, the first time we got a naked girl in the studio, I was really surprised because I did not think that stuff happened in real life. And we could flirt with girls on the phone, but they're not actually going to come down. Oh shit, she's here. And, and after that happened a couple times, I'm like, I'm 25. So, and let's face it, I did not get a lot of action in high school. So I was like, well, this could really be cool. So that was very exciting. And so we would ask girls grannies, French or thong, no matter who it was, when they would call up, if she was female, we would say grannies, French or thong. We were going to guess what kind of underwear they had on. And we were right. I'd say 85, 90% of the time. I would also be able to guess a woman's bra size by her voice, which I can still do. And very good at that. And
in the South, that could be guys too,
Sometimes, yeah.
I struggle with my weight. I understand.
Well, me too. And my favorite big guy that would call us is his name was Richard as well, and he was a big fan of UT. He loved the balls, and so we called him Big Orange Dick. and I still see him from time to time. He's a great guy. But anyway, people would call up and get very angry with us, and I would say things that really I got to realize, like, this is West Tennessee, and this is a very conservative area, and this is a very most people listening are very conservative Christian or at church every week. And I would say stuff that people like that don't want to hear. Now, the reason we got away with it a lot of times is because Harvey is right there across the hallway, and he's like, Buzz, don't say. There was an opposing viewpoint. Harvey always took the opposing viewpoint, and I did that for him too. He'd be like, Buzz, don't buzz. Don't say that. Hey, man, don't you think? He would argue with me, and then there was somebody arguing with the guy that was being a jerk on the radio, so nobody got too mad. There would be people that were pissed off. And there was one lady who was a judge's wife, who have both since had disgraceful lives, actually. I will not name names, but this person, their life did not go well after they screwed with us. She decided to start a crusade, and this was inevitable. I should have known this was going to, again, I was very naive. We should have known this was going to happen. But one, church lady was driving her teenage son to school one day, and they were listening to our show, because, of course, he was like 16, so he loved the show. And she heard, I don't even know what it was, but she heard something she did not like. It was sex talk, whatever kind of sex talk it was. She did not like it, and she decided, well, this has got to stop. This cannot stand here in West Tennessee. So she began to call all our advertisers. And the one I remember she did cost us was CC's Pizza. CC's Pizza got a call or a letter, probably got a letter, and CC's Pizza was not in that decision wasn't made in the town. It was made in some corporate office somewhere far away, and one letter was enough. They're like, okay, we're going to pull our stuff, and they don't want to deal with this. And there might have been a couple of others, but we survived that. And there's a few things like that. People would get mad, and people call and say, I'm going to come down and kick your ass. But generally, give me a couple of minutes, I'm great at calming people down on the phone. Where I should really work now, I should really be in customer service. Because if somebody calls in who's irate and angry, I can have them laughing in 5 minutes. I'm good at that. That's a skill I have, and I use that on the radio, and that probably saved my life a few times.
Who would you say is the coolest guy that you've ever interviewed?
Fabio.
The real Fabio?
Okay, you remember I Can't Believe It's Not Butter, that guy?
Yeah, Fabio.
He did that Can't Believe It's Not Butter. He was, for people who don't know, he was known for doing covers of romance novels. Yes. He was this Austrian guy with long hair and big muscles, and we used to get all kinds of weird stuff to interview. We had a deal, it was an MTV deal, where we would get people we could interview. But why those people wanted to be on the radio in Humboldt, but they didn't know. We got on a list of radio stations to call. So I was really shocked. I was like, when I saw we were going to call Fabio, I'm like, Fabio, that's, I'm certainly not a fan. I thought, no way, this guy's going to be the worst interview ever because he's stupid. He's just a dumb, long-haired guy. I really resented that kind of guy who's in good shape and stuff. Right. And ladies loved him. So me and Fabio are polar opposites, also very successful in life and wealthy. But anyway, this guy charmed the shit out of me. He was so entertaining. He was funny. He told me about his life, and I was just fascinated. I thought I could totally have a beer with Fabio. Anyway, he was charming. I don't have a copy of the scene. I don't have a copy of anything. Oh. But he was super, super charming. I loved Fabio. And the funny one was on September the 11th, 2001, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but something really terrible happened. Yeah. And that day, we were interviewing Al Jarreau. We're in this love together, Al Jarreau. Yeah. And the moonlighting theme, the famous jazz singer, which, again, we didn't play any Al Jarreau records, although we did that day. But right in between the times of the first plane hitting the tower and the second plane hitting the tower, life kind of went on like normal because people thought, oh man, a plane hit the World Trade Center. Geez, what a horrible accident. Yeah. So for about an hour there, life was normal. And, we thought horrible tragedy. But anyway, Al Jarreau was in New York City doing his phone tour for, I don't know if it was his new album or what it was. But we're talking with Al Jarreau, and we're like, hey, Al, what about this? Did you hear about this World Trade Center plane that hit the World Trade Center? He's like, yeah, isn't that amazing? I can't believe that. But so the new album is going to be great. We're going to have, like, guest stars, Gloria Estefan is on the record. And and we just talked to him like normal. And we talked about 9/11 as it was happening. And
with Al Jarreau,
because I'll never forget Al Jarreau. Like I think Al Jarreau's passed away now, but if I had ever met Al Jarreau, he'd probably remember me because we talked to him about 9/11 on 9/11, and he probably remembers that. But the other one that really went terribly was Lisa Kudrow. Lisa Kudrow was promoting this movie she did with John Travolta. It was about lucky numbers or something like that. Yeah. Something about, John Travolta wins the lottery, and Lisa Kudrow had a small role in that movie. So even though she was the most famous TV personality at the time with Friends, she had to do a radio tour for this movie, contractually obligated. So she ended up on our show, and I completely screwed this one up. Most embarrassing celebrity moment of my life. I completely embarrassed myself because what I did was I thought, because again, we didn't realize that other people didn't always find what we said funny. So I thought at the time, Matthew Perry had been he was in the tabloids all the time. Right. For his weight going up and down. He would get kind of chunky and then he would be super skinny. Well, it turns out he had a horrible drug problem. He was doing, I don't know what he was on, but anyway, I thought it would be funny to ask Lisa Kudrow, hey, what's up with Matthew Perry's weight? He's fat, he's skinny, he's fat, he's skinny. What's that all about? You ever ask him about that? And she, of course, knew the real story, so she's like, no, I don't, because we're nice to each other. Yeah. And then it was just like 3 seconds of silence, and I sort of backed off the microphone, and Harvey took over the interview, and it went fine from there. So tell us about John Travolta. What's he like to work with, And
does he frequent massage therapy places a lot?
And meanwhile, I'm like, hey, you don't understand. I'm a huge fan of Friends. I love you guys. It's the best show ever. I love the song. Yeah. I just love you guys. Could you say hi to Jennifer Aniston for me? But I just kept my mouth shut after that. But I screwed that one up. But there's other instances of that. But generally, we had great times with people, great conversations with. We didn't do a lot of celebrity interviews, but mostly we just tried to get girls on the phone to come down and be naked. And a shocking number of you know. You wouldn't believe what a girl would do for some Dave Matthews tickets in 1999.
I could imagine a few things.
But let me be, and these were lawn seats too. These weren't even the good seats, but because the concert promoters used to send the radio stations a brick of tickets. Right. They'd send you like 200 tickets. Do what you want with them, no questions asked. Here, just talk about the show. But it used to be we would have tickets to just throw around like popcorn. Right. And we would. But I want to be clear. It was all for the radio show. I was so excited to be doing this radio show that I was a good boy. I was a good boy that whole time. I was with the lady who is now my wife, coming up on 20 years. And, I was excited that this was for the show. And she believed me. And it really was. I was in love, so I didn't take advantage of the myriad opportunities that I had, but it was good times.
You guys had Mick Foley on one day, and that was one of those days I was sick and I couldn't go in, and I stayed and listened to that whole thing. How did you come about getting? I think you might have had another wrestler on it at one time or another, and Bill Dundee called in all the time.
The best one we ever had was Handsome Jimmy Valiant.
Oh, mercy.
I got to find that tape for you because, oh God, that was the best show ever. I got him to sing along. We did the Celine Dion "My Heart Will Go On" song together. And he was the guy that I grew up watching was Handsome Jimmy and Bill Dundee, all the Memphis stuff. But Handsome Jimmy was incredibly entertaining. Yeah, Bill Dundee was an enormous amount of fun. Of course, and they all were. There was no wrestler that came on the show who wasn't great every time, but those are the only two I think that ever. Well, Bill Dundee's son,
Jamie.
was it Justin? I think
Jamie Dundee.
Jamie, he was there once too, but generally wrestlers were on the phone. All the big ones were, but yeah, I remember talking to Mick Foley. I know there were others. I think we talked to China.
Yep.
There were others, and I can't. My memory escapes me because here's the deal, guys. I am now a huge wrestling fan again, and I was when I was a kid. I grew up watching Memphis, and then, of course, everything in Memphis. I grew up in West Tennessee, so everybody watched it.
You had to.
There was no avoiding it. And then I got into Crockett era WCW, Four Horsemen era stuff. Way into that. Way into that. I mean, there was not a big WWF fan in the 80s, but at some point in the late 80s, I picked up the bass guitar and discovered girls, and I sort of I decided I don't know, I got too busy for it. I got into MTV more than wrestling. So I kind of didn't watch wrestling from, I'd say, 1989 until 2002. So the whole time everybody's into the Attitude Era,
right?
Stone Cold and Rock and all that. I was aware of it, of course, but I was not watching wrestling at the time. I took like a 12-year break off of wrestling, total break. I mean, I wasn't paying attention, and we talked to people that now I would be very excited to talk to because I'm a fan. But at the time, I'm like, yeah, Mick Foley, that's great. And he was very good too. Of course, he was very entertaining. It was around the time his first book came out.
Yeah, I remember he brought up having, he was like, you guys are from Jackson. There's this nice little place down there. It's called Casey Jones Village. I always go there. I was like, what? He knows Casey Jones Village?
Jim Cornette, his podcasts are probably my favorite out there right now. And if you bring up Jackson with him, he will not miss a chance to pimp out Casey Jones Village because it's right there by the interstate. Those guys drive through there. They're on the road. They stop, get some real country food, I mean, they should probably drive a little further into town, but
well,
but of course, it's great.
Speaking of wrestling, and speaking of being around a co-host or a partner, it's inevitable that you spend so much time, 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours with them at a time, 6, 7 hours. You're gonna have fights. Do you ever remember any on-the-air fights or behind-the-scenes fights with any of the guys at the radio station that just stand out in your memory?
Well, here's the great thing about what we were doing at the time. Me and Harvey were pretty much on the same page, but yes, inevitably there were things that we disagreed with. But Harvey had the good sense, actually brilliant sense, to if he was mad about something, he wouldn't tell me that day. If I did something during the day that pissed him off, like if I came, for example, I was habitually late. I was chronically late. When we first started the show, we would go on at 7 because Harvey didn't want to get up that early. And I'm like, great, that's fine with me. We did move it to 6 later on, but we would start the show at 7. And Harvey would get there at like 4:30. He was a workaholic type of guy. He had lots of stuff going on. He was an early riser, always was, always first one to get there, last one to leave. He was that guy. I was not that guy. If, on a good day, I'm rolling in at 6:45. And I knew I should get there earlier. And they would, and I put in my hours because, I would stay later, but I was habitually, chronically, pathologically late. I mean, this has always been my problem. You guys got me on time today. Just consider yourself lucky. It's daylight saving time. I mean, are you out of your freaking mind? We went to see Wicked last night in Memphis, and I'd never seen Wicked, so we had date night last night. So we didn't get home till like 3 a.m. We watched the time change. So I'm not tired. I'm excited. But anyway, if Harvey was mad at me, for example, for being late, he wouldn't talk to me off the air about it. He would put all that stuff on the show. He would berate me for being late, but not in a mean way, but in a you hear it on that tape that you have where I was late that day. My alarm didn't go off is what my excuse was. And he's talking with Chef Randy about, do you have employees that show up 5 minutes before their shift starts? and Randy's like, no, we fired those people. And I'm like, okay, I know. So that's how he would deal with me. And I did the same thing with him. If I was mad with him, I would do it on the radio show, and we would turn it into something for the show. And we would actually work out the issue at the same time. So it was both good for personnel reasons and entertaining for the listeners. So if you heard us arguing, it was genuine. We did not make up arguments, I can tell you that. But our partner at the time, we called him Opie, we would both gang up on him from time to time.
Yes.
I mean, when you are the this was when it was really fun. When you are the focus of me and Harvey going back and forth on you, my God, I can't imagine a more brutal, because he would go and then I would go, and while I'm going, he's thinking of something horrible to say to you. But we would do it with a smile on our face. We wouldn't yell at people. We would just tear you down vocally. And it was one of the most cruel things I have a lot of regrets for it, but God, it was entertaining. Once in a while, they would gang up on me. And I think I had a bit of a thicker skin because I knew it was for the radio. I could enjoy it for the radio show, and I wasn't afraid to defend myself. But it was tough, man. If Harvey's going at you, man, he could tear you down, and he could tear you down like nobody's business.
Well, you guys, sometime around the early 2000s, you did a contest for a female co-host. I figured this was a way for the station to, I don't know what they were trying to do, why it was probably like forced, maybe, by the higher ups, but I remember the winner was Jerry, and to be honest, she was fine, but it kind of like something about the edge of that show got lost. And there were days where it sounded like, you or her and Harvey would kind of clash a little bit. And, guys take jokes, if I throw an insult at Josh, he's going to throw one back. And it kind of seemed like she got a little passive aggressive at times. Was there tension there, or did I just misread that?
Not real tension, no. We were very close, and we really liked each other. And she fit in wonderfully, better than anybody else that we tried, because we tried like 40 different guest co-hosts before we picked her. And she was great. She fit in with us beautifully, but it was a different dynamic. It did change the dynamic, because you're not going to say, there were things that we were saying that we're just not going to say when there's a very nice lady sitting right next to me who I like and who I'm, I don't want to piss off or offend. So we would keep it a little bit lighter. Just for the fact that we're Southern gentlemen. We grew up here. We're not going to be that rude to a lady that we were to Opie, because he could take it as far as we were concerned. But, we're not going to talk to her like that. We're nice to ladies. We're guys. We're good guys. And another thing is, she was sitting right next to me. This is when we moved into we're in one studio.
Right.
So when there's a song playing or a commercial playing, we're all talking to each other, which is terrible for the show. We should have all been in different studios. We should have put Jerry in her own booth, just like Howard did with Howard Stern does with Robin. She's separated from him. If you want to talk to Robin, you got to wait till the microphones are on. That makes for a better show, you see. Yeah. So she's right next to me, and Jerry's still a beautiful lady, a gorgeous lady, but she's diminutive. She's quite short. She's under 5 feet. I'm not sure how short she is. She's not a tall gal. And we would throw the midget thing at her, and I hate to use that word, but she's not a wrestler. Yeah. You can use it if you're referring to wrestling.
Yes.
But anyway, she was short, and we would tease her very gently with things like that. And my favorite thing to do is I would play the song from The Wizard of Oz. We represent the Lollipop Guild. Yeah, well, I would play that song when we were talking about how short she was. And she was right next to me. So she would punch me really hard in the arm when I would do that.
Right.
So that made me stop because she was very tough. Obviously, I don't know if you guys knows any women that are under 5 feet tall, but you do not want to get into a scuffle with them. That's never a good idea because they're all they had to learn to defend themselves, right. And they're tough. So she would punch me in the arm. So I would cut it out because I didn't want to get punched in the arm because she could punch pretty hard. And we were right next to each other. And so all that stuff put together, the dynamic changed over time, but also we were getting older. And gosh, how much trouble do you want to put yourself through just to make a living?
Yeah. Whatever happened to Jerry? Is she still doing radio work, or is she in?
No, she was in sales before. She was in sales, I think, before she was in the radio business, and then she kept doing sales while she was in the radio business. She did radio sales as well, and that's how you actually make money in radio. Right. I'm not, you know what? I don't. She's definitely working and not in radio, and she's probably in some kind of sales or something position. She's just a regular job. She's a normal West Tennessee gal. But she was funny and charming and very nice, and she's great to have around. But no, she's. I don't think it was her dream in life to be on the radio. It wasn't mine either, really, frankly. And she kind of moved on with her life after we were done with that. But, after I left the show, that's another story. But when I left the show, Harvey and her kept going for a while, and they did a pretty good show. And, her and Harvey, I think her and Harvey had a better chemistry than me and her and Harvey did.
Yes. I
don't know why that is, but they were doing a different kind of show. When we started, our show was very, the alternative music and all that, it was 100% geared toward guys. And it is hard to get advertisers after a while when you're trying to get agencies to buy your station and things like that. So the idea was that, we needed to attract a few more women into listening to the show. But we kind of had a reputation by that point, so I think it was kind of a wasted effort.
Well, you know what? Switching gears a little bit, it's been probably like over 15 years, and I still can't get the song out of my head. The Buzz and Harvey, a flamethrower chiller. It's stuck.
Yeah.
It's like, and it comes out at the weirdest times. I'll just be walking down the grocery store aisle, and there'll be a chili can on the thing, and I'll be like, Buzz and Harvey. And I'm like, why? Who did that song? And how did that whole chili deal come about?
Okay, well, just like we often did on the show, we would just be talking about our lives growing up, like Memphis wrestling. We'd get off talking about Memphis wrestling or something that we grew up watching. And Kelly's came up because I tell you what it was. I had gone to the grocery store and picked up a can of, they had a new white chili that they come out with. It just had white beans and chicken, I guess, or I don't remember what it was, but it was delicious. So I knew Kelly's was in Jackson. We all knew, you grew up eating Kelly's tamales and all that stuff. So I got on the radio and I'm like, hey man, Kelly's new. They got this white chili, which is it's awesome. And Harvey's like, what? That can't be good. And I'm like, no, it is. and so we were talking about Kelly's and talking about how we grew up eating the tamale. We're just retelling the story that everybody listening also who grew up there also. Oh yeah, me too. We're bonding. We're bonding, and there are people listening, believe it or not. So after about 20 minutes of this, we get a call from, this is, I forgot his name, but, let's say it's Chuck. Hey, this is Chuck from Kelly's. My family owns the company. And we're like, hey, man, I love your tamales, blah, blah, blah. And so we were just saying, he's talking about he likes the show, and I'm going to like your chili, and we're just kissing Kelly's ass because I thought, hey, man, we'll get some free chili, right? They'll send us a case of chili. And which they did, but they sent us like a pallet of it. But they actually didn't send us as much of that free chili as we deserved. But anyway, so we were talking. What we need to do? I love chili, So we just talked to this guy on the radio, and the whole plan got worked out right there on the radio. Hey, you should put us on a can of chili. We'd like to have a can of chili. I like to make a real hot chili, and I really did like hot chili. So we actually did. They brought us. They said, you know what? That's hell. Let's do it. Why not? I don't think there was no contracts or anything like that, but we went and took pictures, and Kelly's kind of took the took the reins at that point, and they sent us like 4 different, they would send us cans like with white labels, sample A, sample B, and we went through recipes. We didn't go through full recipes with them because they're secret recipes. They're Kelly's, and I miss them. I miss them still. Even though I know I still see them on store shelves, but I know the factory's closed. So I'm like, how does all this happen? I don't know. I don't know where they get it done.
They made too much.
But anyway,
Yeah, you got to get rid of that excess inventory.
They must get it packaged somewhere else. I don't know. Anyway, I grew up eating it, loved it. So we eventually settled on a chili recipe, which was really damn good. Best chili I've ever had out of a can. And it was a bad sales move on my part because I really like super hot, spicy food, even more then than I do now. I like outrageously hot. Like I would have been one of those guys that does the pepper challenge on YouTube or something. So I was like, hey, let's call it flamethrower hot chili because I would eat that. I would see that on the shelf and go, I'm buying a can of that. Meanwhile, not everybody likes food as hot as me. And the chili really wasn't that hot, but it looked like it was going to burn the lining of your mouth off. So I don't know how well it ever sold, but we ran a commercial for it. Yeah, we went on like a loop. It was on 6-7 times a day for like 2 or 3 years because we wanted that chili to be successful because, we were super excited. Hey, man, we're in Kroger. Right. And I remember seeing a pallet of it on the end cap at Kroger, and I was just like, wow, oh, crap, it's on sale. Anyway, I don't know how much of that chili they sold, but if anybody that ever tried it loved it.
Is there a tape library somewhere that has a lot of the old shows still, or are those long gone forever?
There's a few boxes of cassette tapes. I don't have anything from like the Opie era, from the Vision era. I don't have that stuff at all. Harvey has a few cassette tapes because we didn't have any other way to record it at the time and keep it because, a hard drive on a computer at the time was like 1 gigabyte or something. And you can't, you just had nowhere we had to put them on cassette tapes. If you wanted to keep a show, you had to record it on a cassette tape. Harvey's got a shoebox of cassette tapes somewhere that he keeps telling me he's going to let me borrow and digitize and record into the computer. But, he hadn't come up with it. I got to go bug him some more about that. I don't really have any tapes anymore. I've moved a couple times and anything I had's gone. And there's a few people that used to work there that have a few tapes, and I'd love to get them all together and get them all in one place. I would really, really, really like to do that because this tape that you had, which was just 20, it's like one side of a tape. It was a 26 minutes of the show, but you had hit pause. Yes. So it wasn't like 26 minutes, including songs and commercials. It was just 26 minutes of us talking, which is probably more like an hour and a half of the show, spread out. And, even that was just super entertaining to me. And I didn't remember the show, but I do remember the steaks that Randy brought us on the show.
Right.
Because I remember he brought us steaks one day. That's all. I just remember the food.
I tell you
what I do have. I have tapes of the older shows because I did figure out how to record it digitally and started putting it on CD-ROMs. But by that time, I have a lot of good stuff. But the stuff that I really would love to have from the early days, I don't have. But I have everything from like the last 3 years of the show.
Wow,
that's awesome.
So.
Have you ever thought about putting that on YouTube? Just kicking the tires, see what it does? Sure.
I don't know. I don't know who. Like I said, the really, really good stuff that I would love to put on YouTube, I don't have. But
right.
I did make Harvey a copy of everything I had, and I put it on a thumb drive and gave it to him. So he has that, but he hasn't let me borrow his shoebox full of cassette tapes yet.
Would there be any chance that you and Harvey could get back together for like a little podcast?
I would like to do that. I have an idea of how we could actually do one, but I don't know if it would work or not. But we talked about some things, but I don't want to say he's semi-retired. He still works all the time.
Right.
But he's like, I don't know how interested he is in new ventures at this point. And again, is there any money in podcasts? I have not figured this out yet. I've got a lot of stuff going on right now that I'm making money with. So to do that, I mean, it would definitely be fun. And I'm sure if he and I sat down in front of a couple of microphones, we'd snap right back into what we used to do. But I guarantee you we won't be doing a radio show together again. He's out of radio. He's done. He's done. He makes TV commercials and radio commercials, and he does lots of stuff.
Right.
He's a very busy guy, and of course he's very creative. And he has, of course, the comedy club that he runs South Street.
Like, I was a big radio nerd, so that whole time period for me stood out, with SL100s, Pillow Talk, where you'd listen to these rednecks call in, I love Brenda, and even though she's carrying my brother's baby, I'll still love her. I'd like to hear White Snake. You hear that all the time. I love the comedy of that, and then, you flip it on weekdays, and you'd hear Buzz and Harvey. So to me, that was a golden time period in my life, and if I could go back and listen to that radio, I would. But man, we've went over an hour here, and like I said, we haven't even scratched the surface, so we're going to definitely have to have you back.
That's great. We got to talk about wrestling. We did a wrestling match. I've been in the ring. There's plenty to talk about, but like I said, you guys don't have any. Obviously, it's not hard to get me to talk.
Well, we just didn't want to monopolize your time for the day,
or monopolize.
Yeah. But yeah, so you did some time in the wrestling ring. You did I'm guessing some live events.
We did one. We did one match at the ballpark there. It was the Diamond Jacks ballpark at the time, Pringles Park it was at the time. Yeah, we did one match there, and we had one training session before that. And of course, I thought I knew what I was doing because hey, I watch wrestling,
right.
So I watched it growing up, and I picked up a lot from those days. And I had listen, we don't even want to get into wrestling because I can tell you my whole life story with wrestling. I had a wrestling ring in my above my parents' garage, not a real wrestling ring, but I had my own version. I put together a wrestling ring with duct tape and garden hose, and like I said, when I wasn't a fan, I wasn't a fan. But when I was, when I am a fan, I am. So when I was hardcore into wrestling, so we had our one match, and that was when I had blue hair, and it was great. Harvey came out in a mask and hit Opie with a guitar, and that was a swerve, and I won. So
now
I don't have any video of that either. I wish I did.
I think we were there. Like, I think me and Josh, there wasn't a wrestling event that happened within a 10-mile radius of Jackson that we weren't at. So I want to say...
This was after a ball game.
Yep, we were there.
A few people stuck around to watch that. Well, I wish you'd videotaped it.
Yeah, we were there, and, that was back when videotapes were like the big cassette, on or the little VHS-C. But, yeah, we were definitely there because it was with Memphis, right? Like, I want to say Brian Christopher, Sir Mo, and a lot of those Memphis guys were there.
No. It wasn't even that. It was after a ball game at the ballpark, and we did one. It was just one match, I think, or maybe maybe they did do more.
They did a whole show. Yeah, they did a whole show because I didn't really like baseball growing up, so I was like, I'll sit through a baseball game to watch some wrestling. So I was the exact opposite of everybody else there.
Well, it was really fun. I think it went pretty well, but I enjoyed it. But I got a concussion, of course, during the training session. I by the way, you guys, here's why I couldn't make it in wrestling. I could have been great. I'm 6'2.5", and I'm a big guy, and I obviously like to talk, and I like to be entertaining. So I think I have the basic. I think I could have been great. Except here's the thing: I have absolutely no muscle tone and no athletic ability whatsoever.
It never stopped me. So
I know you have to tuck your head when you take bumps and all this kind of stuff, but I didn't even have the muscles to keep my head from hitting the mat when I took a bump. So we're doing the training session, and I'm like, wow, when you run into these ropes, it hurts. Yeah. It's like getting hit with a wiffle ball bat or something. And then I would do I love doing bumps. I'm like, I know how to do this, and I would do it, and I would do it fine, except that my head would slam on the mat every time. And after about 4 times, I had to go throw up. I know now, I got a concussion.
Who was training you guys?
Okay, I can't remember their names. It was local guys, really nice guys, but I can't remember. It's been 20 years.
I wonder if one of them was Trey Keller. Do you remember where the
No, I know
was?
Trey. It wasn't. I knew Trey very well. I was friends with Trey, so I would have remembered it was Trey, and it was not him.
Okay. But yeah, man, we're gonna have you back on definitely and talk more wrestling, talk more since we got the Buzz and Harvey questions that you probably get all the time. Since we got those out of the way. Really? I would have figured a lot
Not
of people.
as much as you'd think.
Really, I would have figured a lot of people catch you with those.
Not a lot. Well, no. Here's what I get all the time with Buzz and Harvey. It's like, "Are you Buzz?" And people explain that they love the show and used to listen to the show, and I appreciate that very much. And then they go, "Man, I'm that guy that called you about the golf balls that went through the creek. Remember?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
No, I don't. There's so much we did that is completely erased from my mind.
Right.
I remember them. Even the girls, even the topless girls, I don't remember that well. Just barely. I don't know. I have that kind of memory. It just goes away.
Right. Well, I mean, like
So
I said,
I don't remember what they're talking about ever. After about 5 minutes, they're like, "Oh yeah, that guy. I know you. Hey man, how you doing? We were actually great friends."
do you ever get there used to be a guy on the radio with your same radio name. His name was Buzz. He was on 105. Do you ever hear those kind of comments?
No, they seem to figure it out because there haven't been a lot of See, when I picked that name, it was because it sounded good with Harvey. The runner-up was Buck. The runner-up I was going to be Buck. So it was going to be the Buck and Harvey show. I thought Buck and Harvey kind of good. So I just picked a name that was going to work with and Harvey.
Right.
Or Harvey and X or whatever it was. So that was what we came up with. That's what I came up with. It took a while to come up with a name. I didn't want to use my real name because I was afraid. I smartly did figure out, I'm going to get, we got stalkers, it was a whole thing. It was smart not to use my real name or to use my last name. Now things have calmed down a great deal.
Right.
I don't usually use my last name on the radio much, but I don't hide the fact that my name is my real name is not Buzz, but my real last name is Blackburn. So I do go by that. And I'm not in the phone book now because I don't have a phone in my. I don't have a wired phone anymore, and I don't frickin' miss it because the only people that call you on there want money. And
is the phone book the saddest
thing
ever?
About?
Is the phone book the saddest thing ever now? It's like it used to be like the biggest, thickest thing they could send you in the mail,
right?
And now it's like they just hand you a Xerox sheet. Here's the 9 people that have the phones.
Yeah,
and half of them are lawyers.
Once a year, it magically shows up in my driveway, and I just drive over it and keep going.
That's
absolutely useless.
Used to be a feat of strength when somebody says, "I could rip a phone book in half." And I was like, well, great.
A 3-year-old can rip
yeah, wonderful. You can do that now. Congratulations. Well, man, like I said, I have enjoyed this more than you can know, and I hope that me talking ad nauseum about being a fan of yours isn't taken as anything other than genuine, because, like I said, we are just huge fans. We want to have you back on. Anytime you want to come back on, please just let me know, and I will be bugging you like I did since September to get you on again if I have to.
I didn't mean to put you off that long. I don't know why it took so long. No, thank you. I was happy to do it, and I hope anyone who never heard the show wasn't completely bored by that.
No,
because if you don't know that there was this radio show, I don't know that you give a crap about any of this conversation. But anyway, fun anyway.
I don't know that anybody gives a crap about any of the conversations we have on a daily basis. But I'm telling you,
the Red Sovine, we got to get together and listen to some Red Sovine, or because listen, let me. Well, that was great. That was totally a Buzz and Harvey. That could have been a Buzz and Harvey bit right there. We would have reacted exactly the same way you guys did, and would have had the exact. So I see the influence there, and that makes me very, very pleased and happy. I appreciate that. And we would have reacted the same way. And while I was listening to your show of you listening to the redheaded, what was his name, Red Sovine. Yeah. I want to say redheaded stranger, but that's Willie. Anyway, we're listening to that song, and while I'm listening to you guys do your show with that song, I am doing as though I'm in the studio with you. I'm commenting and doing voices of I was doing the trucker voice and all that. I'm doing it along with you while I'm listening, and I think that's part of the fun.
That's awesome. Well, man,
you couldn't hear me, but I could hear you.
Dude, we really appreciate that more than you know. And anytime you want to find a song that sounds like that, you just want to call up and make fun of it, please.
There's nothing that freaking crazy. There's nothing that can compete with that song.
Well, Buzz,
that would have been a buzz cut back in the day.
Yes,
every day I would play a weird song at 9:30, and that would have been one if I don't think I've ever known about that song, or I would have played it.
It's a very sad song, and troubling as you listen to it when you're older.
if you don't have a sick mind, it will absolutely bring a tear to your eye. But if you if you have any sort of normal thoughts listening to that song, you're gonna go, what?
Or a run in with the step uncle,
yeah.
Those things will.
Right. So
hey, we all have.
Yeah, West Tennessee, man.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Well, Buzz, like I said, you can hear him on 92.3 The Hog, and that's a station that streams out across the internet airwaves as well. So you don't have to be local to hear that. Puts on a great show. Listen to him. It's 2 to 7 on weekdays. Buzz Blackburn, man, thank you once again. We got to have you back on. Thank you for being on P3 Radio today.
I appreciate it very much, guys. I love what you guys are doing. Thank you for doing that. I hope somebody's listening. And for all my other stuff I'm doing, I have an audio book that I have done and my YouTube page and social media and all that. Please go to buzzblackburn.com.
When you go shopping for wine, do you look at the labels? Do you stare at the price and wonder if the wine is worth the expensive tag? Well, stop it, because Wine of the Month Club has you covered. Every month, Wine of the Month Club is going to send you 2 bottles of high-quality wine right to your front door.
And what better way to say I'm thinking of you than a subscription to the original Wine of the Month Club for a friend or a sweetheart. Each month they'll be reminded of your thoughtfulness and will receive the monthly wine letter and newsletter binder. Recipes, wine knowledge, and great wine, and the opportunity to get more of their favorites is at hand. Give with confidence and joy, knowing that you're a part of the original Wine of the Month Club.
By the way, there are no dues, no fees, no hidden charges. Cancel anytime with no obligation. Just pay no more than $23.96 plus shipping for 2 great bottles of wine. Go there now. Sign up by visiting our link, tinyurl.com/P3wine. That's tinyurl.com/P3wine. The Wine of the Month Club, the original wine club since 1972.
He speaks fluent Klingon, backwards. The best story he's ever told was to himself. Of the 2 women he slept with in his life, one fell asleep, the other thought he was someone else. Dogs take him for walks. He is the world's most semi-interesting man.
I don't often smoke, but when I do, I only choose Vista Vapors.
Visit them today at tinyurl.com/P3Vista.
Keep it flavorful, my friends.
Well, the sound of that song means we have come to the end of another edition of P3 Radio.
Once again, we'd like to thank Buzz for being a part of today's show. It was super awesome to have him on and have him for that long. Couldn't thank him enough for that. For Josh Briley, I'm Richard Mulligan saying thanks and good night.